Alrighty, hey everybody. So today I'm going to make up for the meeting I missed last week. Sorry about that, guys, for those of you who showed up. And I figured since this will be very likely the last practice I'll be doing for the year, I would just go ahead and get this knocked out with live stream. Most of the entirety of this lecture is based on our book that we've been using in IU Skillport, Cyber Operations. It's published by A Press in 2019. The full title is Cyber Operations: Building, Defending, and Attacking Modern Computer Networks, 2nd edition. I won't be showing that book on stream today just for copyright reasons, but I encourage you to pull it up in IU Skillport, or if you have a physical copy of it, follow along in there as well. We're going to be taking a look at Chapter 3, which is, as I mentioned, titled Operational Awareness, section Linux Tools. So we're going to take a look at some of the useful tools that we can use to help us get a better understanding of what's going on in our system and better defend it. So let me kick you on over to our virtual machine here. I have a Debian 8 virtual machine here. You can see I'm logged in as root. I do believe that one of the machines in CCDC is a Debian 8 machine, but a lot of these tools that I'll be showing you today are pretty distro agnostic, so you don't necessarily need to worry about them not working just because of your distro, unlike some of the other tools. So let's pull up our textbook, and the very first command you're going to want on your system, obviously, is you're going to want to change the password with the password command. It'll ask you to enter your new password twice. Obviously, I'm not going to do that because I don't feel like changing the password. Let's see, cancel. Okay. That would change your password if you were to log in. The very next thing you can do is you want to see who else is logged into the system. With CCDC, that's usually no one, and this doesn't always accurately reflect you getting hacked per se, but it's a good thing to run every once in a while just to see if anyone's logged in via SSH, things of that nature. So if you type who and touch enter, it will show you everyone who's currently logged into the system, how they're logged in, and where they're coming from. Like, for example, you can see here on screen, you can see it's a root TTY1. TTY1 just indicates that I'm logged in via the physical console, or since this is VM, the virtual console. If they were connected via SSH, it might give you a host name, an IP address, something like that. You can also give a who-ah, gives you a little bit more information. More about system users, the PID of the person that logged in, a little more information about that. The command W also gives you about that same output. Tells you where they've logged in from, how long they've been logged in, how long they've been idle, what they're running. You can see over on the very left, on the very right-hand side, you can see I have the what, W, because I was running that command. What time I logged in at, all that good stuff. Another thing you can look at is last. That shows you the actual login logs for the system. Since I'm the only one who's ever used this server, you can see when I logged in, what I did while I did it. And of course, this is only successful logins. If you want to do unsuccessful logins, which may be helpful for helping you determine brute force attacks, you can do last B. And that'll show you people trying to log in with the wrong passwords, all kinds of good stuff. So that's probably something you want to keep an eye on. Another good thing to look at is the Audit D system, if you have it installed. I don't think we do on this system, so I'm going to go ahead and install it. I'm going to ignore that warning. And what Audit D will do is it'll give you basically exactly what it sounds like, audit logs of pretty much all of the actions that happen on your system that you can configure. And then you can search those logs later, which is really, really useful if you need to put together some sort of incident report for CCDC and you want to find out exactly what an intruder did on your system. So you search the Audit D logs with the command AU report, but you can also find these logs in a couple of different locations depending on how they're configured. So you can go to the default var log. Of course, you've got all your default logs in here, so and you've got the audit directory. You've got your audit.log. Usually just reading this by hand isn't super useful. So you'll end up wanting to search it with the AU report command. So AU report. I won't go over an exhaustive list of all of AU report's options. There are a ton. Just one basic one I can do is -AU. That will show me data about authentication attempts. Because I've never signed in or out of the system with it installed, it's not going to show anything. So I'll just log in and log out real quick just to demo it. Now if I run that command again, it'll show my login information. I've got a time, account, terminal, what I executed, whether it was a success or not, and then given an event ID. That's just an internal Audit D thing. But I would encourage you to look up cheat sheets for that. Make a note of them for yourself. They might prove useful eventually. Like I said, lots more flags. Another thing I've kind of tended to notice, part of CCDC, is a lot of the times they won't erase the shell history. So if you were to type the words history and punch enter on your user account, it'll give you a list of all of the commands that have been run. You can see some of the ones I've run here. And a lot of the times in CCDC, they won't actually erase the command history, so you can go back in and see all of the nastiness they've done to your system before you got it. And that can be really, really useful at finding some of the things they've done to your system. Like, for example, I've seen them go in and edit the user account database to include an account name with the password redteam123. Like, obviously, that's not something you want enabled on your system. So you can just go in and delete that, and you're good to go. But but without that command history, you might not have known about it. Another thing you can install on your system is the process accounting. I'll let you read about that on your own. I'm not going to demo that here because that looks to be a bit it's pretty exhaustive. It can take a little bit of training to get used to. But it does there. It allows you to do very granular level accounting of everything that goes on your system down to the clock cycle. So that may prove useful, but I'm going to leave that up for you. The next thing we're going to talk about is processes. Determining what is running on your system in order to reduce your attack surface is essential into making sure you don't get pwned, basically. The more stuff that's running, the more attack surface you have, the more likely red team's going to get into your system. The more stuff you can kill off, the better. The first way you're going to want to be able to do that is using the top command. The top command will give you a brief overview of everything that's running on your system, the CPU usage, the memory usage, all that good stuff. And you can scroll through and see everything that's running on your system, its PID, who's running it, the amount of CPU it's using, the percentage of memory it's using. You're going to want to get a good idea of what it is that's running on your system, what should normally be running on your system, so that you know what exactly in here is unusual. Like, for example, if I scroll through here, I can see I've got Audit D running. That's normal because I just installed it. But if you had been assigned, say, a web server, and you logged in and you saw an FTP server running, like FTPD, that might not be good. You might want to stop that. There is a more friendly version of top called HTOP. I'll have to install it for you real quick. provides a little prettier view of what's going on, a little bit easier to understand. I'll launch that real quick. As you can see, this is a little bit nicer. And you can see a little bit more of the commands better. And you can kill and manage processes right from within this terminal. So if I were to press F9, I can send various control signals like sigterm to the process and end them right from here. So if you can install HTOP, I would absolutely prefer to use it over top, but you don't always have that option. Moving right along, there is also the PS command, which is just a pure command line, no TUI GUI of process views. Most common command, PSAUX, gives you pretty much all of them. And from here you can grep down to filter by users or things like that. So if I was interested in PID 200, I could just do PSAUX grep 200, and it'll give me just that line. Again, there are lots of other commands to PS. I'll let you look at most of those on your own. One I will show you, though, is PSAX-forest. This is one that the book refers to as pretty useful, and it just lets you see where exactly commands come from. It kind of shows you the command tree. Like down here at the bottom, you can see from bin login, my login shell, that spawned a bash shell, which in turn spawned the PSAUX-forest command that I just ran. So that can be pretty useful in tracking down where a command was run from and why. Alright, this next command, Netstat, Netstat and SS socket statistics, are my favorite and probably what I would say the most important commands you will use during CCDC overall. And these commands show the network processes running on the system. Things that are listening, connections that are being made, things of that nature. Because, as you know, the red team is going to be attacking your system over the network. So the less things you can have open to the network for them to attack, the better. Now, obviously, you have services that are going to be scored that you must keep open, but a lot of times there are also going to be services you can close without any problems. So, if we run netstat here, we can do netstat-t for TCP, L for listening, P to show PIDs, and N to, I believe N gives you the actual process numbers and not just names. So if I run netstat tlpn, you see nothing is listening on this system. But if I were to start something like SSH, I guess it's not installed. Let's just install it real quick. Just for demo purposes. And if you're curious about any of the commands I'm running right now, we do have a previous video on packages and service management. If those APT and systemctl commands don't look familiar to you, I'd advise watching them. So, we can do systemctl status, SSH, you can see that started. So if we do netstat tlpn, we can see that SSHD is started, and it's listening on ports 22. You can see that part down here with the local address 000:22 indicates that it's listening on port 22. Socket statistics also does about the same thing, just kind of a newer SS. Socket statistics does about the same thing, but on some systems you have SS, some systems you have netstat, some systems you have both. Syntax is about the same. And on this system, we just happen to have both. The textbook gives you a very long listing of all the possible flags you can use with netstat SS. I encourage you to take a look at those. LSOF is also available. That gives you a little bit more verbose view of everything going on. So you could do LSOF-I4. And that's not installed, so let's install that. one of the big things you'll have to do during CCDC is some of these packages will be installed and some of them won't, and sometimes your package manager will be broken, so you won't be able to install anything. So it's really important to be able to adapt and make sure you can work with what you got. And here you can see pretty much everything that's running over IPv4 in the network. Let's see. Yeah, that's all the current or listening IPv4 connections. You can see we've got our DH client, which is DHCP, and you can see we've got SSHD. So not a whole lot running on this system. You won't expect to see that in CCDC. There's going to be quite a bit more running, and you'll have to sort through and determine what's needed and what's not. You can also look at resources by user, resources by PID, all of that good stuff. All of that's included in the textbook. Again, I won't go over that here. It's just good to know. Another good thing to know with processes is, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but in Linux, everything is a file. And when I mean everything, I do mean everything. Processes in particular are stored as files under the proc file system. So if you do ls here, you can see there's a directory for every single process that exists. So if I want to see the PID for SSH, typing, I'm telling you. You can see the main PID for SSHD is 2203. So if we SSH or CD to 2203, you can see there's a file for it. And if we cat, let's say CWD, CD into it, I guess. Oh no, it's a symbolic link. Okay, so ls-l cwd. We can see it points to root, so the current working directory for that process is root. If we cat the command line, we can see the command that was run to start it. In this case, it's user sbin sshd. And if we let's see, cat the exe file. Oh, well, that's a link to the executable, so it should be ls-l exe. It's a link to the actual executable that we used for the PID. We can also, let's see, ls-lfd, which gives you links to the file descriptors, which is kind of a low-level thing that you probably won't need to worry about. And it just shows you all the resources on this, that the PID itself is using, at kind of a low-level view. Alright, that covers just about most of the textbook. This chapter in Linux Operational Awareness. There is a separate chapter on Windows systems that I will not cover just because that's not my area of expertise. It also mentions some other tools like Wireshark and TCP dump, which can also be extremely useful if you need them. However, that will probably come more in handy for things like NCL than it will CCDC, although occasionally you might have Nginx or things like that. Alright, that covers our content here today. Of course, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in Discord. And with that, I will likely sign off. I hope this lecture proves useful. Again, make sure you're practicing on your own. I will likely have Alex do some sort of evaluation at some point just to see how you're doing. And with that, I will say good luck and goodbye. Thanks.